That was the letter B on a lift wall. B, nihilistic. It's the lift to an artist's studio, where there's a picture of his own face in sharp focus. But because it's multiple focus, it seems like the focus of an insect. Tom Friedman. What kind of a nihilist is this guy? Yeah. There's his eviscerated body, a fake caterpillar, and a sculpture made of chewed bubblegum. Here's that body again. A real shoe, a real watch. Both really his. But the rest of it is mostly coloured papers and copy decks. It's not a profound disintegration of the self like Rimbaud advocated, but a comic explosion of a non-believing modern artist. It's the nothingness of nihilism, but stripped of its conventional morbidity. In the previous era, moral nullity might be horrific, but for us it's pretty normal. And here is nullity in excelsis, since it's a totally blank sheet. A staring out competition between me and a work of art, and you at home and the artist. Who will win?
I was thinking, like, making these objects and someone looking at them. And I thought, what would be a way of me sort of creating some type of mutual relationship with the viewer? What is it that we share? And it was that we both looked at the art. You know, we both spent time looking at it. So I thought that I would use my look or my stare as the material for it. And it kind of figured 1,000 hours was enough time to somehow almost create some sort of magnetic aura around it. Every day I would spend some time staring at this piece of paper and jotting down the amount of time.
Okay.
Until I reached 1,000 hours.
Let's see. 1,000 by 24 is 42 days, which divided by 7 is 6 weeks, more or less. I can't keep up with it, especially since this gallery closes in 15 minutes. An insect view of a cereal packet. Ordinary objects in human experience, but with the human experience bit made questionable. Rimbaud was fascinated by the occult, but he didn't think witches were real. It says here that a witch cursed this empty space.
It was a very bizarre experience that I had. The first person I talked to, this witch said, when I asked her to do it, she said, if you affect, you will burn your little fingers. And she just said that. I said, what? She said, if you affect, you will burn your little fingers.
Yeah, that's creepy.
So that's sort of the stage for this whole thing.
So you actually commissioned a witch to curse that space?
Yes, yeah.
Too much.
My work was becoming more sort of fragile and invisible. My thought was, if you believed in it, it existed. If you didn't, it didn't exist.
That was a void in art that perhaps refers back to the void in existentialism. Make your own rules, existentialists said in the 1950s. Hot balls, this work is called. We stole them over a 6-month period, and that's why they're hot. One tiny aspirin, carved into a headache self-portrait. Existentialism faced the awful truth that human motivation is absurd. You have to make a leap into the void, fulfill your potential as a human being by your actions and your decisions, not by following conventions. A disturbing toothpick explosion. The famous angst of existentialism coming back in the 21st century as bubblegum, as mere random facts, like a dictionary where all the definitions are negative.
Deceitful, deceptive, decimate, despair, despise, destroy, destructive.
He actually went through a dictionary and picked out all the negative words.
Manifest, feud, fiend, fierce, fight, filth, fraud, freak, forensic, hell, hellhole, helter-skelter, hideous, Hitler, Holocaust, homicide, honky, lunatic, madness, sham, shit, sickening, villainous, vindictive, violent, vomit. I mean, do you think it is nihilism? Do you think that that what you're doing has any aspect of non-belief to it, or belief? Do you think beliefs come into it?
I guess yes and no, because I can't help but to teeter back and forth between this sense of faith and this sense of absurdity.
Faith in what? So like that,
just faith in what I'm doing or
right.
what I see around me.
But you allow the work to be absurd. It always has an absurd angle.
Mm-hmm.
Don't change the channel. I know it looks like nothing's happening, but he once made an artwork which was literally just a yawn. While photographing himself, the camera caught him authentically yawning, so he framed it. But now he's being asked to fake one for TV.
Let me just try to hyperventilate a little.
A man in an existential crisis. Jean-Paul Sartre was the last significant existential philosopher. One's own authenticity was the thing. There is no essential humanity, Sartre said. You are defined by your actions.
It's not working. Tell me a bedtime story.
If I was to tell him a story, what could be better to send him off than one by Samuel Beckett, who knew Sartre and admired him?
A number of which then, further proof were needed, flashed through her mind, one after the other, then dismissed as foolish.
A gush of words, never quite explaining anything, but just going on streaming. That's all you get from this play by Beckett. It's the same despair at the human condition that all his works have.
Unless, of course, she was meant to be suffering, thought to be suffering.
It's called Not I. If not him, who is it? Whose suffering is the actress Billie Whitelaw? Not even her, just a mouth. Talking about.
Or for the lot, or no particular reason, for its own sake.
Beckett died in 1989. He kept up his style of minimalist grey desperation, of the dreadfulness of existence, from the 1950s pretty much to his death. This scene is from Ghost Trio from 1975, just agony and silence. Because Beckett has a kind of universal theme of every man's inevitable aging and passing, with the illusions of youth giving way to the bitter reality of suffering existence, the anonymous ancient protagonist here is easily identifiable as not just Beckett, but everyone. This is it, our lot. Nothingness and blankness is all we're going to get. Here's some well-fed college kids in LA. You'd think nihilism, of the Beckett kind, would be unmarketable here. But actually, they're in the first days of rehearsal for Waiting for Godot, the play that made Beckett famous.
What was I saying?
Bags. Why? Always fold, never put down. Why?
Now have more fun with this when you talk about it.
Rick Clucci, an old Beckett interpreter, was introduced to Godot in 1957 when the San Francisco Actors Workshop turned up at San Quentin Prison to perform it. Clucci was in there serving a life sentence for armed robbery.
So the question is, how do we make it interesting for the audience?
He put on his own stagings of Beckett in prison and was eventually paroled, met Beckett in 1974 and was invited to become his production assistant.
Before you get back and make a finer point. And we lose the joke.
Has always had a tremendous fascination with prisons, and that the fact that I suppose that a lot of his plays are about people in prisons,
In the prison
metaphoric prisons, yes, people in cages, people in darkness, as it were. In the 50s, I recall reading the work and seeing the work in the prison and being a part of it offered to me a look at my own soul.
Yeah.
And I think prisoners in general don't find Beckett bleak, but find him real.
Right, realistic.
Yes, indeed.
Well, a lot of what is thought to be nihilism is realism, really, one finds.
Mm-hmm.
There's a sort of realism about what things really are and telling the truth as it really is, as opposed to falsities. And when you take away the falsities, people don't like that, and as you say, it hurts.
Yeah, the comfort zone is gone.
Yeah, and he certainly is a great master of that.
The comfort zone for Beckett was memory, but it was also the despair zone. Memory is your own play in your own head, starring you, where you restage everything so you come out okay. But if you're a truth-teller from the dark side, then the play might take a different turn.
Upper lake with the punt, bathed off the bank, then pushed out into the stream and drifted. She lay stretched out on the floorboards with her hands under her head.
The inevitable gradual erosion of all comforts. That's the theme of Krapp's last tape. The appallingly named anti-hero listens in despair to himself when he was 40 instead of ancient.
I noticed a scratch on her thigh and asked her how she came by it. "Picking gooseberries," she said. I said again I thought it was hopeless and no good going on, and she agreed without opening her eyes.
He wants to unveil something.
Yeah.
He wants to get behind the mask. He wants the curtain to open on this vista of our human suffering. And that the courage it takes for man, if man can see the point of his suffering. I mean, this is the existential premise of it all.
Just been listening to that stupid bastard I took myself for 30 years ago.
Here he is, the master of seeing everything so clearly it might make you want to commit suicide. Why harp on about him? What makes all these nihilists good is that they make a form out of despair. With Beckett, he sees the utter reality of the meaninglessness of everything, but, well, he loves language. He rejects overblown language, not language as such. With him, the richness of the words is matched by the ever more multitudinous layers of despair that the words describe.
Here I end this reel. Box 3, spool 5. Perhaps my best years are gone, when there was still a chance of happiness. But I wouldn't want them back, not with the fire in me now. No, I wouldn't.